Okay. Anyone frequenting social media over the past week or so has very likely come across the Studio Ghibli art style explosion, I guess I'll call it that, which has taken over everything from memes to family portraits and even popular film trailers. To briefly explain what's been happening for those that don't know, ChatGPT under OpenAI recently debuted their new imaging model and made it free as well, which was surprisingly competent for a number of different tasks, one of which is replicating the iconic style of Studio Ghibli. Studio Ghibli, for anyone unaware, is an animation studio that's been around for like 40 plus years. The work that they do is famous all across the entire world, and the level of intense detail and artistic labor required to make that work is astronomical. Every single frame of a Studio Ghibli movie is hand drawn at 24 frames per second. Even if you hold the same picture for multiple of those frames per second, well, we're talking tens of thousands of images made by hand just to animate simple sequences, and the results of that dedication are totally incredible. Well, it may be incredible, but the previously unattainable nature of that work, for the general public at least, appears to have changed, with basically anyone now being able to generate complex sequences or individual frames in the very closely replicated style of Studio Ghibli using ChatGPT's newest model. Just to emphasize that, there's YouTube guides, even more, being published right now today as I make this video, with hundreds of thousands of views at least, detailing step-by-step instructions on how to create your own Studio Ghibli images. Like I said before, people are taking movie trailers and short videos, converting those as well. And the results of it all is a wave of Studio Ghibli fan creations all across social media, even as high as Sam Altman himself, the CEO of OpenAI, who used the style for his little profile picture and reposted multiple images in that style to his timeline. Now, it's no secret here that I am a very, very vocal critic of AI programs. I think there's a tremendous amount of danger. I think the ramifications of job loss as a direct result of AI replacing humans in the labor force is a problem we're about to contend with very painfully. But I also understand that the accessibility of being able to have artwork from your own mind at the press of a button is a very difficult thing to try and fight against. Artwork, at least up until recently, conceptually, hasn't exactly been the most accessible thing to get. If you wanted something unique or customized especially, but you weren't artistically inclined or skilled on a personal level, you had to commission someone. That costs money, money typically proportionate to the labor, which could take many, many hours. And not only that, you had to also communicate with the person. You had to express what it is you wanted. They had to understand it. And then you get to the very painful process of revisions, which is a pain point for a lot of creative people. I used to be one of them, when they're trying to make something for a customer that's from the customer's mind. It's a complicated process. It costs money, it takes time, and there's kind of a finite amount of runway available to you because the artist can only really give you so much time and effort before things get to be just way too draining. At its best, the process will go smoothly but take time. But that's not always the case. And when you give people a method of having their creative visions, their own creative visions, come to life without the added financial burden, without the waiting period, and without basically any of the human tedium component, brought on by the necessity that you communicate with an artist directly, it's pretty understandable that mass adoption would and will and does take place, and that a lot of people are now turning to this software for mass-produced, easy, relatively cheap, and often decent quality images. Obviously, this kind of goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. I think human-made artwork is way better. I think it has more soul and it supports careers in a way that truly matters for a whole lot of people. But when you offer the ability to press a button and make whatever you want, whatever you type in really visually come to life, no one should be surprised that it gets used. On a philosophical level, in a vacuum, that's pretty straightforward, but it gets a whole lot less straightforward when you start talking about how the AI gets trained. As a really generic explanation, which most people probably already know, AI gets trained on basically everything that humans have already produced. It scrapes enormous amounts of data from the internet, collectively training on the past works of all humanity, really, in order to then spit out replicated styles. But when you think of it that way, instead of just magic machine make artwork for me, the ethics get substantially more complicated. If an artist spent their entire life, let's say, creating thousands of images, and those images are now training material for an AI program, which then replicates the same style of image with new subject matter, the artist has been at least partially supplanted by that. If the AI only costs, $20 a month, but makes an image comparable to what the artist would spend 3 weeks crafting individually by hand for a price of like thousands of dollars, that's harmful. It's accessible, sure. The customer feels a perceived benefit, but the benefit comes at a cost. And when we start talking about Studio Ghibli, an iconic 40-year-old studio with millions of illustrations, crafted by hundreds, more like thousands of individual artists over the span of decades, the instant ability to replicate the work that they've done becomes more than just a meme. Let me explain that. Alex O'Connor, the YouTuber, great channel, definitely go check that out, has a really, really interesting video about this. But ChatGPT, right, for a long time, simply could not generate images of a wine glass that was either completely full or almost empty. The newest model, ChatGPT 4.0, as of today, when I'm making the video, actually can generate those images now. But for a long time, it couldn't, because the overwhelming majority of what it was trained on depicted a glass of wine as roughly half full. Sure, there were probably some images out there, floating around the internet where the glass was completely full here and there. But when bulk scraping content, glasses of wine as like a key search term being used to train the program, whatever it found under that search term, they were pretty much always showing the same exact thing, which is a normal glass of wine half full. Because of that, the AI didn't know how to do anything different. Even when repeatedly and very, very clearly prompted to create the kind of image where it's full or almost empty, it couldn't do it. Because the complexity of making something truly new, which it had never seen before, or at least seen extremely similar items, very similar, which are then used as a way to approximate, isn't possible for the AI to do. Well, when it comes to Studio Ghibli, the troubling implication that is behind how well it can replicate the style, when it comes to Studio Ghibli, there is so much content out there of characters and motions and landscapes and really everything you can think of over the years. It's actually not surprising at all that the AI can do such a good job emulating the style if it trained on all of that data, which it, in my opinion, very obviously has. This is where we do have to speculate a little bit, but AI is rapidly approaching, in some cases it's already there, a point where you can generate something that is imperceptibly different than the actual work of the artist who originally makes that style. Also, we're basically at the point now where it can generate images and short videos that are indistinguishable from reality on top of that, which is a whole separate problem. I call it the deepfake inflection point, but that's a different video. As we approach the point where AI can generate Studio Ghibli style images and animations for pennies on the dollar, what happens realistically? Well, the authentic work from the studio probably remains valuable to a large number of people on principle alone, thankfully. But if the artwork really is imperceptibly different, it takes a massive chunk out of their audience. The mass production of similar or identical work cheapens things. And while I do fully understand that people are just having fun with it right now, it's not really just a meme. The founder of Studio Ghibli, in a clip that's now making the rounds as a result of so many people using AI to copy all of his work, actually has very harsh critique of AI programs in general. To be fair, he was being shown an AI that had demented movements for the purpose of a potential zombie game, I think, as the example. But the project that he's criticizing in the clip that I'm about to play is an AI endeavor to make an imaging application that would generate artwork as if someone drew it, like 8 years ago. Actually, it has subtitles, so I'll just run it in the background visually. But he quite literally calls AI an insult to life itself, which is particularly striking when his iconic style is now extremely mass-produced, at scale, by an AI program as a viral internet meme. The really difficult question is, what do we even do about this? Artistic style is incredibly hard to protect from a copyright perspective, and copyright seems to be the grounds that most people are trying to use to fight against the AI companies. But these AI companies are taking the approach of steal first, ask questions never. Perhaps there will be consequences, but potentially millions of hours of labor have now been almost certainly suctioned up into ChatGPT 4.0, leading to its uncanny ability to replicate the hard work of an iconic, globally famous studio. There's a lot of court cases now. I won't read them, obviously, I've done that before in prior videos, but there are tons of court cases making their way through the system because AI companies have scraped every single thing that they can get their grubby little hands on. When I say everything, I mean everything. They're even trained on child abuse content because the approach is get as much as you possibly can as fast as you can get it from everywhere, full speed ahead, damn the torpedoes. Even the White House got in on this Ghibli trend using the art style as a way to mock a deported illegal immigrant on their Twitter page. Regardless of how you feel about that on a personal level, think about the people who actually made that art style. Think about a studio leader who abhors AI generally and thinks of it as an insult to humanity. But now the style he spent his entire life perfecting is being used all across the world as a joke in deeply complicated political topics, with anyone who wants to able to get closer and closer and closer to replicating it fully, even in video form, because everything you did was more than likely stolen and used as training fodder. Like I said, it's a meme right now to use the Studio Ghibli style, but there's also baggage while doing that. Large language models are being advertised pretty actively as infinite creativity machines, which is partially true to a degree. But when given that type of capability, what is it that the majority of people actually go and do? Well, clearly, they take those infinite possibilities and simply copy what's already there. They take something that supposedly offers a limitless potential and then very holistically limit themselves to just copying or mass producing what existed in the first place. Sure, in this case, having a Studio Ghibli styled image was something previously barred behind time and most of all money, but we're talking about taking those barriers down, like literally all of them, across every visual medium over time. Again, for a lot of people, it sounds good on the surface, but sometimes things are beautiful because they're rare. Sometimes things have value because of the painstaking effort, time, and passion that were poured into them. The novelty of, I can have a picture, this cute anime style seems innocent, but AI significantly degrades that sense of value. Obviously, this problem has been happening for a while and it's consistently advancing, but the great Ghiblification debacle, as it's called in my view, is a really crisp example of human passion or creativity, despite any objection whatsoever, being soullessly mass produced at scale. With consequences, it's just what are those consequences, how bad are they, and who are the ones that are going to be the recipient of them? I'm not going to sit here and condemn people for making their family portrait or whatever Ghibli style. That's, it's a fun thing to do. Like, I'm not faulting anyone for doing that. But I do think that a surface level internet trend, replicating the style of an iconic animation company in this case, is indicative of something much, much, much more sinister and thought provoking beneath the surface, right? It's a fun thing that a lot of us see on the surface and interact with, but deep down, like, it carries some connotations. Like, there's thought-provoking stuff that's happening here behind this trend. That's it. Let me know down in the comment section what you think. This was a more philosophical video as opposed to analytical, I guess, but it was a fairly requested topic, and I felt like weighing in, even if I am significantly late to the party on this topic, but whatever. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below, a special VPN deal, locals and Patreon, monthly memberships, merchandise, social media, etc., tons of stuff. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, question everything, and have a nice night.